I used to think grief arrived all at once. I know now that it comes in layers. The first layer was the phone call that told me my husband, Daniel, and our daughter Emma were gone after a highway accident during a weekend trip. The second layer arrived during the days that followed, when people began showing up. Neighbors brought food, coworkers handled paperwork, friends sat in silence because there was nothing useful left to say. And my parents never came. At first, I defended them. My mother was getting older. My father hated long drives. Maybe they were overwhelmed. Maybe they didn't know how to face something this terrible. I made excuses for them because I had spent most of my life doing exactly that. Then, my cousin sent me a screenshot by accident. She thought I had already seen it. It was a family vacation photo. My parents were smiling beside my brother, his wife, and their children on a beach 3 states away. The image had been posted the morning of the funeral. I stared at it for a long time. Not because they were on vacation, because they looked happy, completely untouched by what had happened. I called my mother that evening. She answered on the second ring. "How's the trip?" I asked. There was a pause. Then she sighed. "I suppose you've seen the pictures." "I have." Another pause. I waited. I think some part of me still expected an apology. Instead, she said, "Your father felt there wasn't much we could do there." I didn't respond. She continued. "The funeral was already organized. Everyone was already helping." I remember gripping the phone tighter. "Mom, Daniel, and Emma were my family." "I know that." "Then why weren't you there?" Her answer changed something inside me. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just permanently. She said, "We didn't think it was worth disrupting the entire trip. It was a tragic situation, but there wasn't anything that required us, specifically." A tragic situation. Not my husband, not my daughter. A situation. I ended the call shortly afterward. For several nights, I replayed that conversation. The words themselves hurt. But what hurt more was how familiar the feeling was. Growing up, my brother had always been the center of gravity. His achievements were celebrated. His mistakes were forgiven. His needs were urgent. Mine were manageable. At least, that was the word everyone used. I had spent decades convincing myself that unequal wasn't the same as unloved. After the funeral, I wasn't so sure anymore. A week later, my father called. His voice sounded unusually friendly. He asked how I was doing, asked whether I was sleeping, asked whether I was eating. The concern felt strange after months of emotional distance and days of complete absence. Then he got to the reason for the call. He needed money. $40,000. Apparently, a real estate investment connected to a property partnership was in trouble. A payment deadline was approaching. I listened quietly. When he finished, I asked one question. "Why are you calling me?" He sounded surprised. "Because you can help." The answer was honest enough. Not because I was grieving, not because I was family, because I could help. Over the years, Daniel and I had become financially successful, mostly because Daniel was patient and disciplined in ways I never managed to be. What my parents didn't fully understand was that many of the administrative responsibilities involving several family investments had gradually shifted to me. I handled documents, reviews, approvals, records. The work was invisible, so nobody paid much attention to it, least of all my parents. "I'll look into it," I told him. A few days later, I arranged a meeting. My parents assumed it was a formality. My father even sounded relieved. "Good," he said. "We can get this sorted quickly." But the meeting wasn't held in my living room. It took place at the office of the attorney who managed several of the relevant agreements. My parents arrived looking confident. That confidence lasted about 15 minutes. The attorney reviewed the documentation. A financial advisor reviewed the obligations. Then came the part nobody had expected. Because of previous restructuring decisions, ownership transfers and executor provisions activated after Daniel's death,
Authority over several approvals now rested solely with me. Not my parents, not my brother. Me. The attorney explained everything carefully, professionally, without emotion. I watched my parents' expressions change. First confusion, then disbelief, then something close to fear. Not fear of me, fear of being dependent on someone they had never considered important enough to understand. My father interrupted twice. The attorney calmly repeated the same answer. The authority was mine, the decision was mine. There was no argument to win then, no volume loud enough to change paperwork, no family hierarchy capable of overriding legal reality. For the first time in my life, an outside authority had made something undeniable. I wasn't asking to be respected. The situation required it. After the explanations ended, everyone looked at me. The room became very quiet. My father cleared his throat. We need this support. I nodded. I understand. My mother finally spoke. You can help us. The words hung in the air. Not an apology. Not acknowledgement. Just expectation. I looked at them for a long moment. Then I answered honestly. I could. Nobody spoke. But I won't. My father stared at me. My mother looked shocked. I wasn't angry anymore. That was the strange part. The anger had burned away during sleepless nights. What remained was clarity. I buried my husband and daughter, I said softly. You called their funeral a trivial interruption to your vacation. Neither of them responded. I've spent years treating unequal treatment like an accident. I don't think it was. The attorney lowered his eyes. The financial advisor focused on his notes. No one tried to rescue the conversation. There was nothing left to rescue. I stood, thanked everyone for their time, and left. The months afterward were quieter than I expected. My parents called occasionally. The conversations were awkward, careful, incomplete. My brother reached out a few times, but mostly avoided discussing what had happened. Life continued. Not because grief ended, because grief never asked permission to stay. I still miss Daniel every day. I still reach for my phone, sometimes before remembering. Emma will never answer. Those losses remain larger than every family conflict combined. But one lesson survived, alongside them. The hardest realization wasn't that my parents missed the funeral. It was understanding that I had spent years chasing a version of their love that didn't actually exist. The moment I stopped chasing it, something unexpected happened. I stopped feeling powerless. Not victorious, not healed. Just free enough to see the truth.
And sometimes the truth, however painful, is the closest thing grief leaves behind that resembles peace.